What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of the PJF podcast. We have a great show today. We talked about several topics that I think you guys are going to learn a ton from. First, I actually gave a quick story about how I broke my shooting hand. Quick hint, it has to do with somebody breaking into my house and me breaking my hand on his face. So you kind of have to stick around for that story. From there, we got into how to prevent injuries. We talked about nutritional strategies, and we also got into actually training. How can we train to prevent injuries? From there, we got into the ultimate question: how strong is too strong? Is a 2 times bodyweight squat necessary? Is there going to be a point where we reach with our squat strength that no longer increases vertical jump? We go very, very, very in detail with the science on that question. And from there, Skylar asked me, what are my 3 top strength exercises for the vertical jump? And we went in depth in why I chose those 3 exercises. Let's get it. You're listening to the PJF podcast, a show dedicated to decoding elite sports performance and fitness. I'm Paul Fabritz, and I'm an MBA strength and conditioning and performance trainer. If you want to become superhuman, take your fitness, and take your sports performance to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's do it. So last episode, we were talking about all of my injuries. Almost all of them basketball related, but I think I've told you my best one.
Yeah.
My only non-basketball related injury.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, what went down was senior year of high school, right before season. We're talking October, November, playing at my prime. I'm feeling really good.
Yeah.
One night, I'm asleep in my house, and I hear my door open.
Okay.
So that's not good.
No.
Step 1. It's not good when somebody's in your house. Next thing I hear is somebody saying, "Where's PJ?" I'm laying on my couch, and somebody's in my dining room calling my name.
Yeah.
So I go out there, right? And I see 2 guys standing there with a baseball bat.
No kidding.
And I see more people coming in through my front door. And they're like all getting out of one car. Like they keep coming out of this one car. I don't even know how they all fit in there. But they're like coming out, and they're lining up one after another. And they all had like unique weapons. Like
in your house?
In my house.
Yeah.
They had baseball bats. One guy had like a car jack.
What did you do?
He brought in a car jack.
Yeah.
So first of all, I recognized the guy who broke in.
Yeah.
It's a dude that played actually at a rival high school. So he's a basketball player from our rival high school.
Okay.
And these guys just didn't like me.
Yeah.
They just wanted to bash my head in.
That's the next level.
Yeah. So I go upstairs because I have some friends staying over. I have like 3 friends staying over. So I talk to the dude, and I'm like, "Hey, man, okay, we'll fight, whatever. Let me grab my shoes."
Yeah.
And he's like, "All right, cool, whatever." Pretty nice guy
for
somebody.
Your house.
Yeah. So I run upstairs, and I'm waking up my friends, and I'm like, "Hey, let's go downstairs. We're about to get our skulls bashed in," which that's a tough sell.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna stay up here.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna stay asleep. But anyways, good friends, they came down with me. We get downstairs, and we basically talk them into like putting down the weapons. So we're like, "Hey, like we don't have to do this. We don't have to do this with the weapons. Like let's just fight one-on-one."
Yeah, that's all bad already at that point with the weapons.
Yeah. So me and the main dude, we're walking outside. We're just gonna fight one-on-one. And I'm not a big fighter, so keep in mind, like I don't know if I can fight.
Yeah.
I'm quick, so and I train a lot, so I imagine I could fight a little bit, but I've never fought, so like I don't actually know technique. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So we're walking out, and he punches my window, shatters my entire window. Remember, he's already in the house. He didn't have to do that to get in.
He punched it from the inside out?
From the inside out. From the inside out. And this is the best part. He turns to me right after he did that, and he goes, "Yo, I'm going to pay for that." I'm like, that's so weird. You're so respectful for like a thug that broke into my house.
Yeah.
So
angry but respectful.
Yeah. And we kind of had like this little moment where it was like a little respect moment. Like, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Sucks that you're trying to bash in my skull, but hey, at least the window's taken care of. Anyways, we go outside and we start fighting. And again, I don't know if I'm quick, or I don't know if he was like drunk and he didn't even know he was in a fight, but I convincingly won the fight, and it was over quick. It was over probably like 30 seconds. And the very last hit, I punched him in the forehead, and my hand just popped.
Yeah.
The bones were sticking all the way out. It was, I guess they call it boxer's fracture.
Yeah.
So like if you hit with your pinky.
Yeah, side of your hand.
Right, side of your hand, you get a boxer's fracture. And so that bone is literally like sticking up out of my hand. And walk off, whatever. Cops ended up coming.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, do you want to press charges? It's like, no, I think he learned his lesson, and I think I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
Like, nobody won that battle.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, so I didn't press charges or anything, but yeah, so, I mean, I felt pretty cool for a couple of days because I, like, won my first fight.
Yeah.
But
Especially
at
those circumstances.
Yeah. Like, he came into my house.
Yeah,
at that point, like,
it.
I always say that, like, I wouldn't go out of my way to fight, but if somebody's in your house,
yeah,
there's not many options from there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of won the battle, but I lost the war because his face healed and my hand didn't.
Yeah, and we're approaching basketball
Remember,
season.
we're in November.
Yeah, that's tough.
So, and this is my shooting hand.
Yeah.
This is not my offhand. So, I did some quick physical therapy. I came back. I made it back right before the season. But I didn't do the entire physical therapy. I was just trying to get into season.
Yeah, wherever I can get the clearance.
Yeah,
okay, I'm good to go. Cool.
Yeah. So I cut it short, and my knuckles never healed. So like, you know, if I make a fist, I'm literally missing 2 knuckles still.
Yeah.
So like if I'm bench pressing, you'll see that my right pinky just sticks right up in the air.
Yeah.
I can't fold that pinky down. So I literally, anyways, I played well through the season. Like I still averaged like 20 and 5. I kind of did my thing, but I had to relearn how to shoot on the fly.
Yeah.
Like the same form was just not cutting it. I couldn't get my hand on the ball like I used to.
Yeah.
So every game I was constantly changing my form.
Yeah, and that's frustrating.
It is. And the thing is, like, you take it for granted when you're just like a pure shooter who just got a lot of reps. You take for granted the minute details because now I'm changing my hand placement, and we always think, well, that's where it stops. But you change your hand placement, you change the way your arm is tucking, you change the tension through your core, which changes, you know, the fascial tensioning all the way down through the feet.
Yeah.
So now your base is messed up all because you changed your hand position.
Yeah, exactly.
Like everything is connected. So I did pretty well, and I kind of, through college, is like every season, I had to switch my shot because I was still trying to find that perfect like go-to hand placement.
Yeah.
Still to this day, like I always say, I'm in like a 12-year shooting slump.
Yeah.
Like I just can't figure it out. But some days I'll have the mobility and it'll come back, and like I'll just snap.
Yeah.
Like I could be the best shooter on the court any given day, and then the very next day I could be back to being a 20% shooter.
Yeah, that's tough. That's the physical part's one thing, but the mental part of just having to deal with that's tough too.
It's tough. It's very tough. Like I understand, like, if you're just not a good shooter and you never were, it's one thing. But if you used to shoot really well and now you just can't get that back, so frustrating.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the biggest injury for me. I mean, I had broken right shooting wrists. I had broken left wrist. And these are all basketball related. Like, after I transformed my vertical, I didn't know how to use it.
Yeah.
So I would go through the lane and I'm getting up. But like, look, at 5'11", if my vertical's in the mid 40s, do you know how much hang time that is?
Yeah.
I'm high up in the air. All it takes is like a little bump, you know, to my hip, and I'm going down. That's how I broke both my wrists.
Yeah.
It's just jumping too high and not knowing when to jump.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like I always tell people now who transform the vertical, it's like, okay, let's get that vertical, but then let's also know when to use it.
Exactly.
Like, don't freak out and think that you have to jump every single play.
Yeah.
If anything, like, let's try to stay on the floor most of the game, and then every now and then use it.
Yeah, exactly. And know what pickup games you're jumping into.
Exactly.
Don't be taking off in LA Fitness.
That's the other thing. Like if people don't know how to play basketball, they don't know their own strength. Like there's certain things that hoopers would never do.
Yeah.
Like when you're at your peak of your jump, hoopers are not giving you a hard push.
Yeah.
But a non-hooper, they don't know any better.
Exactly.
So no, I don't play pickup games. If I play pickup games, I'm trying to do stuff that I'm not good at. So I'm just trying to, you know, pull up on people and do different stuff. I'm not going to drive through the lane and get up as high as I can anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, learn that quick. But yeah, that's my one non basketball injury that I'm still paying for to this day.
That's tough. That's a gnarly way for it to happen too. And you didn't have any. It wasn't like an emotional maturity thing. It was like somebody's in my house. I must I must defend myself and my space.
My space, especially like after he breaks my window.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, I got that check the very next week. Like he came through with the check.
Well, after you didn't press charges, he better.
Yeah. No, it was the weirdest thing. So I went away from that thinking like even the thugs in Flagstaff are nice. Even like you break into somebody's house, you call them out, you fight, and then you still pay. Like that's kind of sick.
That's arguably the most Flagstaff story I've ever heard.
That's the most Flagstaff, Arizona story ever. Yeah. So don't break into people's houses, but if you do, pay for their bill afterwards.
Be respectful. Be respectful, people.
Yeah. So after that, after all of my breaks, I mean, you could look at it and say, it was bad luck. I was in certain situations. You could look on the other side and say, maybe I had some nutritional deficiencies that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Because remember, I'm breaking a bone every single year. Like at some point, you got to wonder if there's some nutritional deficiencies. And looking back, knowing what I know now, I think it was vitamin D deficiency.
Really?
Because hoopers have this issue in general. Yeah. We're in a gym. So vitamin D, of course, comes from the sun.
Yeah.
We're in the gym all day. And it's very, very rarely are we outside. And even if you were outside, so even if you're like a soccer player or whatever, I think they say you have to get like at least 15 minutes of full body sun exposure.
Yeah.
So that's like tanning naked. Like who's going to do that for 15 minutes every day?
Yeah.
Right. So it's something as simple as supplementing with it.
Yeah.
Right. But at the time, you don't know that. And I actually just had one of our NBA guys who fractured his shin. The doctor had told him it was a vitamin D deficiency.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. That's common knowledge now.
Yeah. And back then it was like, just drink more calcium.
Exactly.
Like you need more milk.
Yeah, milk.
Right? But you're not going to absorb that calcium without the vitamin D.
Exactly.
So, I mean, best advice is go get a blood test, get your nutrition locked in, because chances are good you might be deficient in something and that could lead to some injuries.
Exactly.
For me, 5-6 injuries. Yeah. Like had I just prevented that, had I went and got a blood test, things might have worked out a little bit different.
Yeah, exactly. Good thing is you're here now, informing us all. So yeah,
exactly. It all pushed me in the right direction.
Yeah.
So like at the time, it was the lowest point of my life because I went all in on basketball, and now I don't have it anymore. So at the time, it was like the worst thing that could ever happen to me. But looking back, I'm so glad that it did.
Yeah.
Because it just pushed me in a different direction and allowed me to pick up training instead of basketball, and I can be a way better trainer, and I can help a lot more people through training.
Yeah, exactly. So has a good ending still.
Facts.
So back on the injuries, I know you said you did that to your hand your senior year of high school, and then that just kind of progressed on from there. If you're sitting there, you know what I mean, ankle injuries are obviously the most prevalent in basketball. I remember when I first got out to California to work for you exclusively, we had trained prior back in Arizona, but I just came off 2 years playing college basketball, and I did the simple stick test, just hopping over the hurdles. And my instability was so bad from previous ankle injuries, patellar tendonitis. You kind of looked at me surprised. You were like, you just played 2 years of college basketball? He's just like, I'd see you do that stick test and would advise you to sit down, get some rehab in and whatnot. Kind of take us through that in terms of like, you know, if you're a high school guy trying to play through injuries and just what that actually can set you up for detrimentally.
Yeah. So like the stick test that you're talking about, very simple test where essentially you drop off a small box, you stick that landing on 1 foot for 2 seconds, you push laterally over a hurdle, you stick for 2 seconds, you push forward, you push linearly over, you stick on that other foot for 2 seconds, and then you push lateral and you stick for 2 seconds. So very, very simple test, but my thing is if you can't stick for 2 full seconds, you should not be playing basketball. Yeah. There's no way that anything good is going to come out of playing basketball if you can't do that. So, yeah, like you got there and I saw you kind of unstable, and I was like, yeah, you shouldn't be playing at all.
Mind you, my ego at this point was I had just been playing 2 years of college basketball. I considered myself an athlete, but I definitely had a ton of injuries that I just hard-headedness continued to keep me playing through, and I was really, until you kind of just like plainly looked in my face and was just like, what are you doing? And so I had to take a step back then and do it exactly what you're talking about, rebuild my base, strengthen, you know what I mean, figure out how to just single leg bounce, stick, land, you know what I mean, activate all the right muscles and go from there.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as like training for injury prevention, there's a couple big rocks that you can't ignore. One is proprioception, kind of knowing where your body is in space, being able to give feedback to the brain of our joint positions, right? So that's why I talk about like, let's take our shoes off and let's do some barefoot stuff, because the thicker those shoes are, the less the proprioceptors in my feet, these sensors in the skin actually feel the floor.
Yeah.
And if they can't feel the floor, they can't send signals back to my brain, giving it valuable input. Yeah, so I like to use the example of gardening gloves. Basically, if you were to throw some huge, thick gardening gloves on and then go type, you would have no idea where your hands are. You don't know how hard to push the keys. You don't know how much force to put in, right? And it's because you don't have that sensory feedback from the skin. And so that's essentially what we do with those thick-soled shoes. And so for us, it's just, hey, let's just go barefoot and let's do some simple balance drills.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be on a Bosu ball yet or an unstable surface. That stuff is great for training the structure itself, getting the ankle stronger. But even just simple balance drills on the floor.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of these barefoot progressions in the vert code. And it's so good for waking up our proprioceptors and getting these sensors to really fire the right way.
And I think real quick on that is I just know so many basketball players when they go into training and stuff like that, they're always looking for these like preventative measures by like wearing ankle braces, even in controlled training environments, where just like what you're talking about, what they're doing is they're putting those gardening gloves on now wrapped around the most important.
Yeah, exactly. And if you like, the ankle joint itself is supposed to be mobile, so now we make it into more of a stable joint and we restrict its range of motion. Well, then where's the range of motion coming from? Joint above. So now we have a more requirement for mobility at the knee, and of course that's going to lead to an injury. Right. So you can't just make one joint stable and then expect everything else to function the same. Right. So it's only going to lead to more injuries down the line. Now there might be a place for bracing if you're Steph Curry, and your ankles are kind of made of glass, like you get these sprained ankles every 10 games. I think there's a place for it, but as far as like training, no, we have to strengthen up the feet. We have to strengthen up the ankles. Anyways, back to proprioception. So there was one study that came out showing it could prevent ankle injuries by up to 75%.
Wow,
that's huge.
That's
so I think it was like a 6-week study or something, and they showed a 75% decrease from simple proprioception training.
That's
incredible.
Number.
That's incredible. And then a separate study, this one I think was a little more recent. I think they did a meta-analysis, which is kind of like a combination of a bunch of studies. So like this is what we want. It's the holy grail of science. Meta-analysis. That's what we want to look at. It showed proprioception decreased injury rates by 45%.
That's still huge.
Big.
Yeah, that's still a massive number.
Yeah, so it wasn't specifically looking at ankle sprains, it's looking at overall injury reduction. So 45% is huge. That same study showed strength training decreased injury risk by 69%.
Sheesh. That's a huge number too. Yeah, that's
huge. So the meat and potatoes, strength training, proprioception. Most people would say flexibility is in that meat and potatoes. It only decreased injury risk by 4%. So of everything studied in that meta-analysis, they said the only thing that wasn't practically relevant was flexibility. Now I'll take 4%. I'll take 0.001%. Gains are gains. Now if you're extremely tight, if you lack mobility, that flexibility might decrease by your risk by 50%. Right. So if that's one of your limiters, but overall, like if the majority of athletes have enough flexibility, of course, more is not going to be better. And more could actually lead to more injuries.
Exactly. You've talked about that before, just not being able to have this prerequisite strength within that degree of range of motion.
Yeah, exactly. You're not stabilizing every degree of range of motion that we build, especially through static stretching. But also we're just decreasing the resting tension, right? We need enough tension. Like if I'm going to make a cut, I have a certain amount of tension in my quad and a certain amount of tension in my hamstrings that are trying to hold that knee in place. But what if I'm super flexible and now I'm a little more loose and floppy and I don't have that same structural tension? Now it's more demands on my ligaments and now we could have some serious injuries. So more flexibility isn't always better. So yeah, with flexibility, it could end up preventing injuries, but this study showed only 4%. So if you're looking to prevent injuries, the big rocks, really strength training and proprioception.
Yes. Which, you know what I mean, for modern day basketball, that was kind of, you know, when we were even in high school, which wasn't that long ago. It was a little bit long ago, but not that long ago. There's still kind of that overarching thing that like basketball players don't lift, or, oh, basketball players, what are you even doing in the weight room? Where actually, you know what I mean, we play one of the most common injury risk sports around.
Exactly.
And that being in the weight room is arguably the most important thing a basketball player should be doing.
Facts.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing, like, it wasn't in this meta-analysis, and this isn't a common belief, but I think plyometrics is huge for injury prevention.
Yeah.
Most people look at plyometrics and say, oh, that's adding stress, that's going to lead to injuries, which it certainly could in certain cases. But plyometrics is also, it's like, you know, you're giving a little stimulus in a controlled environment, and it's building ourselves up to what kind of forces we can handle, especially these fast eccentric forces that we're going to be seeing on the court.
Yeah.
So we want to expose anything we're going to see on the court. We want to expose to the body in that controlled environment.
Yeah, build up the stimulus.
And here's a question. The other day, I'm swinging with my little nephew. He's like 6 years old. And little homie is all the way up at the top. Like, he was even with the bar at the top. He jumps off at the very top. He drops and he sticks the landing and just walks off like a boss.
Yeah.
Like nothing happened. Do you think that he went and squatted 2 times his body weight to get there? No.
Probably not.
He plays basketball. He plays soccer. He plays at recess. Recess is basically unorganized plyometrics.
Yeah.
If you're out there like really running around and doing stuff. So like he built up enough absorption abilities at high speeds from being a kid and from running and jumping and just doing stuff. Now, let me ask you this. If I went to LA Fitness and I got a meathead who squats 2 times the body weight but doesn't run and doesn't jump and doesn't do any type of plyometrics, and I said, hey, let's go play basketball and now let's do all of these high-level plyometric movements, do you think he's going to get hurt?
Likely.
Yeah. Right, because he has that strength, which all these strength coaches look at and say, well, you need a certain amount of squat strength to absorb in plyometrics. I think you need human strength. You don't need squat strength, right? And back to my point, take that meathead who squats 2 times body weight and gradually progress him into plyometrics, level 1, level 2, level 3. Now he's actually exposing his body to the loading rates, because it's not just how much total, it's about the loading speed.
Yeah.
Right? So like the tendons and the muscles are undergoing this very, very fast loading speed in plyometrics. You have to get used to doing that.
Yeah.
So plyometrics in themselves, I think, is a big rock for injury prevention, but it has to be gradually progressed.
Yeah.
And yes, general strength certainly will help us on the plyometric side. But don't think that just strength training, right? Think about that example of the LA Fitness meathead, the super strong guy. We know he could not have jumped off the top of the swings and stuck the landing.
No.
His knees would have broke. Right? So because the loading speed is so different.
Yeah. So if you're sitting there and you're just like, how you're trying to figure out what's strong enough. So if you're, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, like I can squat my body weight. Is that strong enough? And how can you calculate human strength if you're someone, you know, if you're a high school kid or even a college kid?
Right. So, you know, most trainers will give a certain recommendation based on squats.
Yeah.
Or a certain recommendation based on deadlifts. And they say squat 2 times your body weight.
Yeah.
Deadlift 2 times your body weight. Or some will say 1.5 times your body weight. You know where they're getting this from?
I'm going to guess dated.
Nowhere.
No.
Not even dated.
Not even dated. They're just,
not even
this makes
dated.
sense, so I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, no. It just nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, this has never been proven that you need X amount of strength to A, jump high, or to be healthy on the court.
Yeah.
Human strength, so our overall strength to body weight ratio is very important for jumping higher, for staying healthy, but squat to body weight ratio is not.
Yeah.
Deadlift to body weight ratio is not. So, and the reason why, and I will get a lot of pushback from coaches on this, right?
Yeah.
The reason why, so if I went and I took you in a squat rack and we start squatting, after several weeks, shoot, if you're untrained, we could probably double or triple your squat strength. And that wasn't because of actual changes at the muscular level. Your physiology didn't change. You learned how to back squat.
Yeah.
You improve that technique. That technique, the gains improved in your squat technique does not translate to your vertical jump technique, does not translate to sprint technique, right? So your strength to weight, your squat strength to weight ratio significantly increased, but that didn't change anything on our higher velocity movements, right? So let me break this down. There's four ways to improve our squat strength. Okay, that's number one, technique. Number two, intermuscular coordination. So that's basically we're learning how to fire the right muscles at the right time. Yeah. We're learning how to increase co-activation, right? So we're squeezing the muscles on both sides of the joint to stay stable under that heavy bar. There's a lot of different ways that the muscles learn how to work together to then get stronger.
Yeah.
But guess what? That does not translate to the vertical jump.
Yeah.
Right? Because now we're unloaded and now we want high velocity movement. If anything, we want less co-contraction. And there has been studies showing that too much heavy strength training will increase co-contraction. And if you do too much of that, that can actually decrease your vertical jump because you increase co-activation. Whereas higher velocity strength training in these studies will show that it decreases co-activation.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Right? So if I decrease co-activation, right? If I learn how to relax my hip flexors and I learn how to contract my glutes at 100%, I get more net velocity through the hip, right? But if I also had a contraction in the hip flexors, I get less.
Yeah,
they're working against each other,
yeah.
right? So these studies actually linked it back to performance too, because they said, yeah, higher velocity strength training decreases co-activation and it actually improves sprint performance.
Yeah, which is what we care about.
That's what we care about.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so anyways, back to number two, intermuscular coordination. So again, I've put hundreds of pounds on your back squat strength all through means that don't actually translate.
Yeah.
Right? So number 3 and number 4 is where stuff starts to possibly be able to translate. So number 3 would be voluntary contraction. So we're improving our voluntary contraction, which is basically motor units.
Yeah.
When we lift fast or we go fast or we lift heavy, we're going to increase motor units. So our nervous system is going to learn how to activate more total muscle fibers, more of these big, strong, fast twitch, right? So if we lift heavy, we do have the potential to increase motor units. That's generally a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. The other area of voluntary contraction is rate coding. So now it's not how many total are we activating, it's how fast are we activating. It's the firing frequency.
Yeah.
Strength training does not do a good job of improving rate coding. Higher velocity strength training does. Higher velocity strength training can improve the overall motor units and the rate coding, but it does a better job of the rate coding.
Yeah.
Right? So that is one area. If you are lifting heavy and you are seeing results, that's probably why, is more total motor units.
Yeah.
But let me come back to that in a second. So that's number 3. All right. Number 4 would be muscle tendon changes. So we're actually changing the structure of the muscles and the tendons.
Yeah.
So there could be a lot of changes here. One change is muscle hypertrophy. Right, the muscle grows. Yeah. Right, a bigger cross-sectional area, more potential for force. Mm-hmm. There's tendon stiffness. So heavy load strength training has been shown to increase tendon stiffness better than anything else.
Yeah,
could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, because it's generally a good thing for improving rate of force development, but the stretch shortening cycle does rely on a compliant tendon to a certain extent, and compliance and stiffness are opposites.
Yeah.
So another thing where this could be good or this could be bad.
Depending on
right?
yeah.
And this is the theme of this whole point, is everything that I described could be good, it could be bad. All right, there's other things when we're talking about the changes at the muscular level. There's other things like lateral force transmission, which significantly improves the ability to produce more total force at slow speeds, but it could also decrease contraction velocity. There's a good, there's a bad. Okay, so if you're still with me, trust me, I'm going to wrap this all up. It's going to make sense. So basically, voluntary activation and muscle tendon unit changes are the 2 ways that we improve squat strength, and some of that could actually translate, right? Okay, so one of the things that I was talking about for the muscle tendon unit changes, muscle hypertrophy.
Yeah.
More cross-sectional area. We think of this as generally a good thing. But are the highest basketball jumpers huge?
No.
No. Track and field, are they jacked?
No.
No. So we know that it might be a good thing to a certain point, and then at a certain point that stops.
Yeah.
Right? And so what's going on inside inside the body when we're improving hypertrophy, the negative side of it is we actually we change the tissue, the muscle tissue inertia. Actually, we increase the internal moment arm length, which means that we need more total contraction for the same change in joint angle, right? So overall, basically what that means is we slow down our muscle contractions.
Yeah.
We improve its ability to produce total force, slow, but when it comes to that very fast, high-speed contraction, we could actually decrease it through too much hypertrophy.
Yeah, which in athletics,
that's a bad thing, right?
That's where it becomes bad.
And then, of course, always like anytime you improve hypertrophy, you're gaining weight. We now have more weight to lift off the ground.
Yeah.
So sometimes if that was like very specific functional hypertrophy that we gained, sometimes that might lead to more force production in the vertical jump. And so that outweighs it. So the added change in muscle masses could be a good thing.
Yeah.
Normally, it's just extra weight that you're jumping with.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So let me wrap that all up. Why I just described all of those things is because 99.999% of strength coaches don't know that. They look at the good adaptations, and they've never learned the bad adaptations.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I just described, there's been a few reviews by Chris Beardsley. If you're interested in this stuff, I'd recommend looking that up. That's kind of where I've learned everything about these negative sides.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered, like, why isn't it linear? Why isn't you improve squat strength and then the vertical jump goes up?
Yeah.
And it's because everybody's looking at the positives, but for every positive, there's a negative.
Yeah, exactly.
All right? So now, let me give you this example. Early on, we find that when you improve your weight room numbers, your vertical jump can go up. You kind of get those beginner gains, right? So the way that I like to think about it is this. You go in and you get a good strength training session where you progressively overloaded, you got stronger, you earn $1, okay?
Yeah.
But on that dollar, there is a 80-cent tax. You're taxed 80%.
Okay.
So we made 20 cents. You thought you made $1.
Yeah.
You didn't make $1. We made 20 cents.
Tax is steep nowadays.
Yeah, very steep nowadays. But 20 cents that's a gain.
Yeah.
Right? We're going in the right direction.
We'll take gains.
So we will take gains over time, session after session, progressively overloading. If we keep making 20 cents, we're going to have some money in our piggy bank, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so generally this is good. Now, after this changes for everybody, let's say after year 1 or year 2 of strength training and getting stronger, we still earn $1 for every session, and now our tax goes up. So now we're getting taxed 90%.
Okay.
Okay, so now
we're in a higher bracket now.
We're in a higher bracket now. So we still think that we're getting that $1,
Yeah.
but we're actually only earning 10 cents. But 10 cents is 10 cents. Let's keep going.
Gains are gains.
All right, gains are gains. Let's keep it rocking. So boom, boom, boom. Another year goes by. We progressively overloaded. By now, shoot, we might be deadlifting 450 pounds.
Yeah.
Now we're getting closer to that strength peak or this magical area where how strong is too strong hits.
Yeah.
Now we're several years in, and every time you go in and you get stronger, you get $1, and now we're taxed 100%.
Yeah.
So what do we earn?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I want to convert the money I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we're earning nothing, and then we're continuing to beat up our body by doing these strength sessions.
Yeah.
We continue to get stronger and continue to beat up our body. And then a year later, or shoot, at that point, maybe 3-4 months later, we're earning $1 from the strength sessions, and we're taxed at 110%.
Now we're in the American middle class.
Yeah. We're losing money.
Yeah.
We're losing 10 cents every session.
Yeah.
So now you get mad and you're like, I just got to keep getting stronger, right?
Yeah.
So now every session we're actually losing money. And what I mean by losing money is these areas that I just described that lead to decreased contraction velocity, these are kicking in, right? And the benefits are outweighed.
Yeah.
So at some point, like early on, those benefits outweigh those negatives.
Yeah.
But they're very early on, and I think earlier than people think, the negatives are going to start to overcome the benefits.
Yeah.
And at that point, shoot, maintenance. As far as strength, as far as pure numbers, maintenance. Let's continue to build human strength, right? Like we do rear foot elevate. There's a lot of other stuff that we can do.
The stimulus,
change the stimulus. But for the most part, in general, our heavy strength training is going to be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
So for maintenance, we need a high intensity, but we could have a low volume. So it could be 1 day a week. We just go in and hit 4 sets of 2 deadlifts.
Yeah.
That's enough to maintain that level. And now we have the time and the energy to spend it on high velocity strength training. That's where the good stuff happens, right? That's where we get gains without those negatives. So now from every plyometric and high speed strength training session, we might be getting $1 and we're only taxed at 10%, 20%, right?
Okay.
So we're going to make a lot more money off those higher velocity strength exercises, and we're going to be able to do that for a lot longer in our career.
Yeah. So it's just conversion rate. So you got to understand, and that's kind of having your own understanding of your own body's human strength cord, and then knowing which numbers are going to be appropriate to you and when to start converting that into the velocity.
Yes, exactly. And so that when somebody says like, "Hey, I saw on your Instagram you said squats are bad," it's like, nah, it's not bad, but like, where are you? Are you still in that area where you can get some rookie gains?
Yeah.
And the relationship is a little bit more linear of like, hey, you get this session, you got stronger, and you earn 20 cents from it. If you're still earning 20 cents, let's continue to go.
Exactly.
But once that cuts off and we're getting $1 and we're taxed $1, hey, we should probably just maintain and go in a different direction.
Yeah.
Right? And the problem is you can't tell somebody when that is. You're just going to feel it, right? So like as a trainer, I know that they're getting stronger, and then I put them on the force plate every week and they're just not going anywhere. Well, hey, we reached that point. We're going to go in a different direction. So there is no, hey, we got to get to a 1.5 times squat, a 2 times squat. Like, let's just build human strength and let's see where it takes us. And when we notice that we're no longer getting gains from it, let's cut back.
Yeah, exactly. And that you use force plates as kind of your conversion rate for your pro athletes. That's,
Exactly. If you don't have force plates, a simple vertical jump test is just fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Are you going up or are you going down?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times your athletes will go down, which is a surprise to a lot of people. You think, hey, they're in a good strength program, they're only going to get better. A lot of times they don't.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of these pre-draft kids who were jumping out of the gym at age 18. Then they go to 1 year of college. These are one and done kids. And they come back like not being able to dunk or like significantly decrease their athleticism. Is it just because the program was focused strictly on strength? I don't know. I think that's a factor. I think it's mostly just load because the head coach is running their conditioning, running them into the ground.
Yeah.
And then they have these hard, heavy strength training sessions. And the combination of everything leads to an athlete that it just isn't as bouncy and as explosive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, constantly test.
Yeah.
Constantly, and trust me, it's okay. Like, we get people on the vert code who hit me up and say like, hey man, after week 1, I decreased 2 inches. What the heck? Well, if there's no decrease, there's no increase, right? That's how super compensation works. So some people get these initial huge gains from mechanics, which is great.
Yeah.
But physiologically, you should get this slight decrease. And then once you fully recover, we get this slight increase.
Exactly.
And over time, that increase gets higher. So don't be afraid, like if week to week, your vertical jump goes down. But like month to month, your vertical jump should not be decreasing.
Yeah.
Right? And if that's the case, you have too much load probably on your body. You got to cut back on total volume, maybe. Or what we're talking about, you're probably just doing too much strength training and you're literally slowing yourself down.
Yeah. You need to hit the conversion rate.
100%.
Okay, so now we're sitting here and we're building stimulus. We're trying to find that happy ratio of strength. Okay, I don't need 2 times my body weight, just need requisite strength, and then figure out the conversion. What are the top 3 strength exercises that people can be focused on in the gym?
Yeah, so if we're talking about strength, we're not talking about plyometrics.
Yeah, for vertical jump. Yes,
right.
Top 3 for vertical jump.
Yeah, so strength exercises. So 1, I have to go rear foot elevated split squat.
Okay.
Several reasons. One reason is it's such a balanced exercise. So the other day I did an EMG study and I showed that I got 100% glute activation in the rear foot elevated. Now, people look at the rear foot elevated and they go, well, it's a squat variation, so it's knee dominant.
Yeah.
It's a very balanced exercise, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because people say, oh, it's a knee dominant exercise. They do it and then they walk around with sore glutes and sore hamstrings the next day.
Yeah.
It's like, is it more quad or is it more glute and hamstring? So it's very, very balanced. And then the other thing is you could play around with that foot. So if I were to have my ankle directly underneath my knee, more of a vertical shin, I'm going to get a lot more post chain.
Yeah.
Now, if I start to creep that foot back, I can actually start to get more quad. So it's basically, okay, what's your limiting factor? Let's get that, right? Whereas that's a lot tougher with like a back squat or with a deadlift. We can't play with that foot positioning as much. And then also if you're a believer in the bilateral deficit, which you should be, we're stronger on one leg. If you add up what we can do on one leg, if you add up what I can do on the right and what I can do on the left, that's more than what I can do on both legs.
So that's what I like most about it. Like what you're touching on right now is it's a unilateral strength exercise.
Yeah. So if you were to go and jump on one leg, you might hit, let's say, 22. You go jump on the other leg, you might hit 22. So 44 inches. So should your standing vertical be 44 inches? It's not.
Yeah.
When you jump off two legs, it's going to be much, much less.
Yeah.
You might only jump 32 inches, right? So that's kind of a simple idea for the bilateral deficit. But like if I were to go to a rear foot elevated, I could hit a nice 200, 225 on both legs, right? So that should be, close to 450, 500 pounds. I can't do a 500-pound back squat.
Yeah.
Right? And especially because on a back squat, your lower back is more of the limiter than your lower body. So rear foot elevated, we are truly overloading our lower body. We're getting it in a single leg stance, which is going to translate really well to sports because we play sports on one leg at a time.
Yep.
And like I said, we get that bilateral deficit, so we can really load up.
Yeah.
And it's also very, very safe because we can get that max stimulus without adding too much load to the body. So after a rear foot elevated, you don't feel completely beat down because you don't have to sit there under a 400-pound bar, right? So you could most athletes are going to be able to just hold dumbbells. So like you could start with goblet position, one dumbbell. Once you can't hold that anymore, go to two sitting by your side. And just keep going. Like, not that many athletes are going to get past 70 or 80 pounds holding in each hand.
Yeah.
If they do, okay, throw a weighted vest on. If they pass that stage and they get to the point where they can no longer hold the dumbbells, like that's the limiting factor, then we can go to, some people would go to a barbell. For me, I go to a Jones machine. Have you seen the Jones?
Yeah. We talked about that before, I think.
So basically, the moving Smith machine.
Exactly.
That's my favorite way to load it because we have a little bit of lateral stability, so I can still get max intent. I don't have to worry about the balance component.
Yeah.
But I still get that nice natural forward backwards. So most people probably don't have that, but a trap bar without the back, great option to move to. But there again, like 99% of athletes probably aren't going to pass that level with the dumbbells, so you don't even need to worry about the future progressions.
Yeah.
Or like I guess what's it called, Hatfield squat, where you have the bar on your back, the what's that, safety squat bar.
Yeah, safety squat bar.
Right, and so then you can actually hold on to handles.
Yeah.
So there's so many good options to be able to overload the rear foot elevated.
Yeah.
So that's my exercise there. Then I would move into probably a trap bar deadlift.
Okay.
And the main reason is I can really cheat here.
Yeah.
So if I only get 3 exercises, I need exercises that really check off multiple things. And so out of the trap bar deadlift, I could go heavy. I could get my more absolute strength. I could go light and get my strength speed. I could go even lighter and get my speed strength.
Yeah.
Basically, I could get it all the way down to there's 10 pounds on the bar and I'm getting more of a max velocity jump.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, I like that one because I can cheat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, trap bar deadlift compared to a straight bar deadlift, it's just a lot more easy. It's just easier.
Yeah, similar to the RFE, you can manipulate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To get what you want.
You can manipulate it, and the weight isn't out in front of you, so you get a little bit less load on the back.
Yeah.
So you might get a little less on the back, and you might get a little less on the hamstring. You're going to get a little more on the quad, and then the glute is actually comparable. So the hip range of motion is much bigger in the straight bar because that weight is out in front of you. But the trap bar, you can load heavier.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I read one study, I don't remember what study it was, but I think it said because of the added weight that you could handle with the trap bar, the glute EMG was the same. So even though you had less range of motion, because you could handle more weight, the glutes were the same, if not a little bit higher in the trap bar.
Yeah.
So you're getting more glutes and you're getting more quads out of that trap bar, and it's just safer. You're going to get
safer,
less back injuries.
Yeah, more efficient,
Right.
more comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, if you don't have a trap bar, I'm fine with a straight bar.
Yeah.
It's just if you have the trap bar, I would just rather work with that. Okay. Third exercise, I would probably go with a high pull.
High pull.
I need something a little higher velocity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very simple exercise, very low learning curve, right? So power cleans are great, but there's a steep learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
High pull, you could teach the movement, gradually start to load it up. Usually session 1, you could get max intent, which is very rare in any exercise to trust like high velocity max intent.
Exactly.
The high pull is so simple, especially if you had a trap bar.
Yeah.
Trap bar high pull is one of the easiest high power movements you can do. If you add a straight bar, it's a little more complex, but it's still pretty simple where you can get to max intent in a couple sessions. The counter argument for most coaches would be, well, power cleans aren't that hard to teach. I agree. It's not that hard to teach, but it's hard to teach and master to the point where the athlete can get max intent.
Exactly. Break that down, max intent, and why power clean isn't the best exercise for max intent.
Yeah, so if you're a professional weightlifter, sure, you can definitely get max intent because the technique is in the subconscious.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, the more complex the lift is, the more the brain has these safety barriers. And when you have those safety barriers, you don't trust getting max intent and pulling it as hard as you can because you're so focused on getting it right.
Yeah, subconsciously you're like, well, wait a second, hang on.
Right.
We got to protect ourselves at this point and at this point.
Exactly.
And so,
Right. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it is in a power clean. Let's say we're going 30% of our one rep power clean max, or 40%, even 50%. So we're working pretty light for higher velocity, which is what most coaches would do on a power clean. If I have to duck under the bar, right, I can only bring that bar up to a certain height.
Yeah.
So I didn't really rip it as hard as I possibly could because I'm telling myself, well, I got to get under this bar.
Exactly.
So if I really ripped it as hard as possible, it would have ended up above my head.
Yeah.
Right. It would have became like a snatch. It wouldn't be a power clean anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a fun test. It's just like if you're doing a power clean, ask your athletes, do you think you could throw that bar? Some of them will be like, yeah, I could have thrown it several feet in the air.
Yeah.
Well, then do you think you're actually getting max intent by bringing it up to, mid-chest and then dropping under it?
Yeah.
No, there's a huge deceleration phase.
Exactly.
So at the bottom, you might get a hard acceleration, but then you turn the muscles off right away because you know that you got to slow that bar down.
Exactly.
That is not going to translate to vertical jump.
Yeah, no, that's not max intent.
No, you're not powering through triple extension. So with a high pull, we could bring it a little higher. We're coming all the way to the toes. We could bring that bar up nice and high. So we can get a better max intent. There's one study that compared power clean to high pull, and I think it was like jump shrug, and high pull just blew it out of the water as far as power output.
Yeah.
The only time that power clean started to compare was at 80% of one rep power clean max. So at the lighter loads, it was just blown out of the water because it's what I'm talking about. You can't truly get max intent with that light bar, right? But then as it got heavier, so like 80% is where it started to compare. And that's because now the bar is so heavy, to get it to a certain height, I got to pull max intent, right? And so from a power output standpoint, it starts to compare. But guess what happens at 80%, 90%? Injuries.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I'm pulling my back out before I get that bar up.
Yeah, and even if you're a great lifter, you're gonna miss some lifts.
Yeah.
And when you miss, you're missing by catching that heavy bar with your elbow directly underneath your wrist.
Yeah.
And now you got all that weight coming down on the wrist.
As a hooper,
you cannot have that as a hooper.
That's
right?
deal.
You cannot have that. Like hoopers' wrists are sore in general anyways.
Yeah.
Because they're getting 500 shots a day. So all that flexion extension, a lot of them can't do basic push-ups, like loaded push-ups. You got to put them in like a neutral position on the dumbbells so that they don't have that massive flexion.
Yeah.
Right? So what makes us think, if they can't do basic push-ups all the time, what makes us think they're going to be able to catch this heavy bar in that flex position?
Yeah.
And everyone does. I don't care how good your mobility is. If you're at 80%, 90%, you're going to miss lifts.
Yeah.
And so I just don't like to take that risk. I think it beats up the body a little bit too much. Now, if there is a significant benefit, hey, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
But again, there's not compared to a high pull from a power output standpoint.
Exactly.
So yeah, number 3, I'm going with that high pull. So those would be if I had to stick to 3, which is tough to do because it depends on the athlete, right?
Exactly.
It depends on the phase. But if you said, hey, you're, I guess, stuck on an island and you only get, I don't know why you would be exercising if you're stuck on an island, but if you put me on an island and you gave me a trap bar or a barbell, you said you have to stick to these, those are my 3.
Leg strength equates to longevity, so maybe you're just trying to stay.
I guess so, but
keep
also you don't really want to burn energy.
That's true too.
Unless you got like
a robust island.
A robust island, but I don't know how to hunt, so I'm not going to be able to kill anything.
Gather, vegan baby.
Yeah, I'll go vegan. That's the one case. Well, I'll go full vegan.
Pescatarian, try and catch the fish, maybe.
No, that'd be good training for hand-eye coordination.
There you go.
Yeah, work on my speed. But yeah, I mean, if I'm stuck on an island, I'm not trying to burn any energy. I'm trying to conserve energy.
Yeah.
But anyways,
hopefully you're stuck on the island with me, since my first go was like, oh, let's burn the energy. Well, let Skylar burn the energy, and then I got food.
Yeah, then I could just eat you. I guess I don't know.
No, that's awesome. 3 exercises. So you're sitting. So you're sitting there and you're trying to build up that requisite strength and you know what I mean, look at your resources and go with those 3 if they're laying around for you.
Exactly. All right, guys, that is a wrap for episode 2. Stay tuned for episode 3 of the PJF podcast. Be sure, as always, to ask your questions on Instagram and on YouTube. Please leave us a rating and review of this podcast. It will really help us build this podcast and continue to provide high-level information for you guys in the future. As always, be sure to check out pjfperformance.net if you're interested in signing up for our online training programs. Our Vert Code and our Vert Code Elite programs are really taking off, and they have been transforming the vertical jump and explosiveness of thousands of athletes around the world. All right, until next time, see you.